Namaste. It's been a while since I posted my last video. Things have been sort of hectic and busy, so I could not do so. But here I am. This is in relation to the Bhagavad Yoga series, for which you have seen some of the previous videos that I have posted. And one of the questions I keep getting asked on a regular basis is, how do we align ourselves? How do we keep a positive mindset when there is so much wrong that is going on around us? Like, there are these murders that happen, there is this poverty, there is sickness, there are wars. How do we not feel negative about it or not get frustrated about it? And that obviously is a big reason. Like, when you read a newspaper, you see lots of stories of all the crime that happens, there are the murders that are going on, there are lots and lots of things that are going on. Obviously, there are a number of factors that can go in, that can help you deal with those situations and keep a positive mindset. Because obviously the easiest thing to do is just stop reading the news. But a lot of people cannot accept that, because, you know, how can we just ignore all this wrong that goes on around us, all this sickness, poverty? So they find it a bit difficult. So there are a number of obviously things that one has to understand. And today in this video, we are not going to cover the whole gamut of things that can help us keep ourselves aligned and positive under those circumstances. We would only cover one aspect of it in this video, which is why there is need for such things. You know, what is the justification? Because if for us it's a step-by-step process, we need to understand the justification why those things are necessary, so it will help us align a little bit more and understand a little bit more on why these things happen, so that we don't feel that worked up or that negative about it. Then there are aspects that we can look at, various other aspects we can look at, that once we have encountered such scenarios, how can we actually keep a positive mindset? So first and foremost, why there is so much suffering and sickness in the world? What role does it play? So we have to understand that before anything else. People say that, oh, if there is God in the world, why there is so much of poverty, sickness, why there is so much crime? So we'll answer that question. What role does this suffering and sickness play? Why is it necessary? We have to understand that the world, the universe, works on the principle of balance. There is yin and yang. They have to coexist for the universe to exist. Like polarity, you have to have a north pole and south pole. You cannot have north pole alone. Even in a magnet, you have to have two poles. Electricity, you have to have positive and negative charge. So the universe works on the basis of that balance. Similarly, the universe works that you have on one side you have goodness, the other side you must have certain things which you consider bad. And why is that? Why is that? So let's take an example. Now, the way any mathematicians or scientists or computer programmers work, and I'm all three, by the way, is that if you have a complex problem, whether it's a scientific problem or mathematical problem or computer programming problem, if it's a complex problem, you cannot look at that problem as a whole and try to solve it. What you do is you break that problem down into smaller pieces, smaller chunks, and then each piece you try to simplify it and test out certain hypotheses. Test out that particular small section with a simple philosophy, simplified approach. Give it certain input and look at the output you might produce from that small section, and based on that you experiment and figure out that this is the approach that you must follow or this is the right solution to this problem, small section, then you look at the other small section of that big problem, another small section of that big problem, and then gradually, even though you have only been looking at very small simplistic scenarios, suddenly you have solved a complex problem. So each of those small simplistic scenarios can be extrapolated to help you understand the complex scenarios. So let's take one example of a complex scenarios. Murders, for instance. So people say, oh, there's so much crime, there is so much murder. It's wrong. How can we accept somebody who murders someone? How can we accept that? We are bound to feel negative when we read about like all these murderers on the loose, all these things that happen. So now it's a very, very complex situation, because when we talk about humans, when we talk about the whole world politics, whole world, the religious infrastructure, the nations, the armies, like when we add all that together in the human scenario, it becomes very complex problem. So let's try to find some hypothesis by simplifying that problem. And obviously humans are animals. So let's just think of a very simplistic scenario in an animal world. So we can also say on a similar terms, we might say that, okay, just the way humans kill each other, that's bad. So similarly, there are certain animals that kill other animals. Theoretically, it's not very different. So let's take a try to break this problem down into a simplistic scenario. Let's assume an ecosystem which has only 3 elements. One, it has some very, very cute and nice deer. Other, it has some predator like a lion, and it has plants. So let's assume a simplistic scenario that there are only these 3 elements that exist in that ecosystem. So now, when we look at this ecosystem, we see, oh, you know what, this deer is so cute, it doesn't harm anyone, it doesn't hurt anyone. So, wow, that's a positive side. But on the other hand, this lion, it just goes around killing those deer and keep eating them. So a lot of people might think that, oh, wow, this is not right. And again, a lot of people would say, yeah, the lion, it's part of his nature, so it should be allowed to do that. That's fine. But we are just looking at, let's say, a human dying. So we are just trying to simplify that. And humans are animals. So let's just look at a very simplistic scenario, and we'll extrapolate it, add more complexity to this scenario, and just reach where we want to reach. So let's just look at that scenario. Let's assume that because lion kills deer, and sometimes lions kill other lions also because they want that territory, right? So they are bad, and deer, it doesn't harm someone, it's cute, so it's good. So now let's look at that scenario. There are only these 3 elements, and some people might say that, okay, you know what, lion is not a good element, so let's just take lion out of this ecosystem, because we only want positive, we don't want anything negative, we don't want any killing. So let's take the lion out of this ecosystem. What happens? As soon as we take the lion out of that ecosystem, the deers do not have any competition. They do not have any predators. And what happens then? They just multiply in population, unchecked. They keep multiplying until, and they keep eating all those plants until the whole plant ecosystem is dead. Let's say they occupied all the land, and they multiplied so much they've eaten all the plants. Let's assume that. And then what happens? The lions did not exist, so plants are dead, deer are dead, and the ecosystem is dead. So if we extrapolate it to, let's say, Earth, the whole environment. So if we take out, so we can assume, like based on this hypothesis, that if we remove some of these negative elements and only positive elements stay, there is a likelihood that the whole ecosystem would collapse. And there is another reason for that. But on the other hand, let's look at the same philosophy, same example, the simplified example, and look at the other side. The fact that lion exists, what it means is that the deer has to find ways to survive. First and foremost, obviously, its population keeps in check. So there is that balance, positive and negative, yin and yang. So if deer numbers start multiplying, lions start getting more food, so lions multiply, so which again reduces the deer numbers. If the deer numbers are reduced too much, automatically lions start dying because they get less food, so then their numbers reduce. So over a period of time, that balance is maintained, so that ecosystem survives and sustains itself. You take one element out, you take deer out, the ecosystem dies. You take plants out, ecosystem dies. You take lions out, the ecosystem dies. You need all three elements for that ecosystem to exist. It cannot exist without at least those three elements being present. So similarly, you can extrapolate it to all these different scenarios. Now, another thing that happens because of these three elements, because of the threat, because of the negative, because of the killing, because of the bad things that you think happen in that ecosystem, which is the lion killing and eating those deer. What happens is that if the lion has to eat those deer, the deer has to learn and find ways to survive. Over a period of time, it keeps trying to figure out newer and newer ways to survive, avoid the lion. And the lions keep finding newer and newer ways to capture and kill that deer. So both these species in that case, the deer and the lion, are learning new skills. And over a period of millions of years, because of those new skills, they keep changing, which is called evolution. If deer had no lion, there is no threat, there is no reason for them to evolve. So they would not evolve. But on the other hand, for that evolution to exist, that threat has to exist. And that is what causes the evolution. And because of that evolution, if you leave that ecosystem out for millions or billions of years, then what do we see? We see the natural outcome of that evolution, that deer has evolved into loads of different types of deer, or maybe even some animals which don't even look like deer. And the lion maybe has evolved into lots of different things, like a maybe domestic cat, maybe leopard, maybe, and number of elements, like number of species which don't even look like lions. So you suddenly end up expanding that ecosystem just by having that negative element present. So you end up creating that evolution, and you end up having far more than one type of beautiful animal which you like, let's say deer. You end up seeing so many different types of beautiful animals on both sides, and the evolution, and then you see expansion of that ecosystem, the expansion of species. You see all these species learning new skills, getting better at what they are doing. So that is the reason that lion has to exist, and it has to kill that deer. So for any ecosystem to survive, you need both sides. Now let's take this example further and apply it to humans. Same thing. If there were no killings, if there were no natural disasters, if there were no wars, if there were no diseases, if there was nothing, what would happen? Humans would just grow unchecked. Humans would grow unchecked, and then they would take over the planet, and they won't have any resources or food left, and they would all die. Unless, before that, they find some other planet to colonize. But then again, that threat would continue. There is that challenge, there is that threat that the Earth would be completely occupied by humans, and there is not enough space to grow any food, so they might all die. Again, unless that threat exists, that the whole Earth would collapse, there won't be any resources left on Earth. Humans would never go and try to colonize some other planet. They would not try to do research to try to colonize some other planet. That threat has to exist for humans to evolve, and for humans to want to try to look for that planet. So that threat is necessary. All those negative things are necessary. So let's take another example, and we'll combine it all together in the end. Let's take another example. People say, oh, why is there poverty? Why can't everyone be wealthy? Okay, let's take an example. Let's assume a scenario If there is no poverty, means everyone is wealthy, which means everyone is at the same level. We are trying to simplify things, not like trying to add more complex parameters. That's how, like I said, if you're trying to solve a complex maths problem, science problem, or computer programming problem, you always do that. That's the only way you can even make sense of any complex situation and come up with complex algorithms or do complex research by looking at simplifying certain sections of that scenario, that problem domain, and try to create simple, very simple hypotheses with very small number of variables. And once you got the result, you know for sure that if you extrapolate it even at a complex level with extra variables, the core philosophy would hold true, just the way we did with simple equation with 3 variables: plants, deer, and lion. So we know that that's true. So then we can add more variables, and then we know the basic philosophy is true. So that's how we solve complex problems, and that's how we understand complex problems, by trying to solve them at a simpler level and try to test the simpler theories with less number of variables. So let's look at another example: poverty. So there is no poverty, which means everyone is wealthy, which means everyone is at the same level, everyone is doing well. Everyone is doing well. If everyone is doing well, so then what it means is, how is that possible? Only if, that even if somebody didn't do something, they would still do well. They would still be wealthy. So if somebody does some work or does not do any work, they are going to be wealthy. That is the only scenario where something like this is possible. That is the only scenario where something like this is possible. Because think about it this way: why do people go to work today? Or why do people work hard? Or why is it that some people are ambitious? They try to do a whole lot of things. Why? Because they know that if they do that, they're going to get money. If they don't do that, they're not going to get money. So if they don't do that, they're going to be poor. If they do that, they might be well off or wealthy. That's the only reason people do go to work or try to start their business and try to do new things. That is one of the factors, the main factor. So it's that threat of poverty which keeps these people working. But if they know that no matter what happens, everyone is the same, we're all going to be wealthy, then where is the incentive for them to do anything? There is not a single reason they might want to do something. So some people might want to do something because of a hobby. They're happy about it. But then, humans are complex animals. Like, most of them would just sit around and do nothing. And at the end of the day, if that scenario happens, if everyone is sitting around doing nothing, what happens then? Theoretically, they would all become obese. They would all become crazy. And then what happens? The whole human race dies. It's that simple. The whole human race dies. But on the other extreme, because there is poverty, and sometimes extreme poverty, it keeps people on their toes. They know that they have a choice to make. Either they do this, so they are well off, or they are just middle class, or they are able to pay for their bills, or they become wealthy. So there is one side where, depending on how much and what they do, they can go from middle to certain other extreme. And then there is the other extreme, that if that extreme didn't exist, these people would not do those things that keep them on this side of the line. They won't. Because of the fear of falling to this side, they do whatever it takes to stay on this side. And that's the reason, for example, poverty is necessary. And think of it this way, simple. If everyone was wealthy, why would you even care about money or wealth? And some people might say, oh, that's a good thing because money is a bad thing, so we shouldn't care about money. So that is actually a good scenario. Again, forget about all of that. We'll talk about that in some other video. But if people, if everyone is wealthy, then people would not have any satisfaction or joy from that wealth. Right now, people think wealth is good, having money is good, or simply because they know the other side. it's a comparative analysis. When you feel good about something means that you feel bad about some other extreme. So you compare, and then you realize that, okay, one extreme is wealth, one extreme is poverty. Oh, I would not like that experience, poverty, so that's bad. I don't want that experience. But on the other extreme, it's good. I want this experience. But if this experience did not exist, everyone had the same experience, there is no relation, there is no comparison. So it's just part of you. It's like just routine. So there is no joy in that wealth. So if you take out the sadness of poverty, despair of poverty, you lose the joy of wealth as well. Same thing applies to sickness and health. If there were no sicknesses in the world, there won't be any joy in being healthy. There would not be any joy in being healthy. And then again, sicknesses play a very similar role. First, obviously, sicknesses, play a lot of a big part in keeping the ecosystem, the population in check. Obviously, that's a very positive thing, because you don't want the whole human race to die, because nobody gets sick, nobody dies, everyone is immortal, and then they don't have any place to go, and they just die. So obviously those things are necessary. And second thing is that people are forced to take action, just like the way we looked at poverty and richness, wealth. So people are forced to take action to prevent themselves from getting sick, so that they can stay healthy. And that's the reason a lot of people, they do all kinds of things. They do meditation, they do they go to gym, they do look after their fitness, they look after their food. So a lot of people, they take action to stay healthy because of that reason, because they don't want to be sick. If there weren't any sickness, they wouldn't have to do anything. They always stay healthy, so why would they do anything for no reason? So same thing applies here. And another important role that sickness plays is, have you noticed that there are so many viruses that they keep evolving. Like there was this bird flu threat that was going on, and then a lot of people suddenly, initially, first time when those that virus broke out, people thought, oh, everyone's gonna die, basically. Just all these gloom stories that you hear in sci-fi films, that suddenly the virus wipes out the whole human race. But it doesn't happen, because our body evolved. And now suddenly that bird flu virus doesn't seem like something that we worry about or hear about. Even though that bird flu virus did, H1N1 I think, did evolve a couple of times, and there were new strains of that virus. Like, that's the evolution. That virus realized that that original strain is not killing humans anymore, so it evolved trying to be more deadly. But then again, humans evolved, the medicines were found, and now we are not that afraid of it anymore. Similarly, initially when people found out about AIDS, same thing. But now you don't hear that much about it. You're not, initially people were scared, really scared, that, oh, the whole human race is going to be wiped out. But now it's just fine. It's just a very, very long list of illnesses and diseases that humans have to cope up with. It's just one of those things, and then the new cures and and the medicine is getting better in order to be able to deal with those illnesses and diseases. And so humans are taking those actions. They are basically constantly evolving. Their body is evolving, their immune system is evolving. This is evolution in process, and they're learning new skills on how to tackle those illnesses, how to tackle those viruses, how to tackle those diseases. Their skills are improving as well. Their knowledge base is improving. And every time they do research in one area, so many times they find out so many other things related to that particular area. And so, the science evolves. Their understanding of the universe evolves, understanding of the planet evolves. So that's just part of the evolution process. So think of a scenario. If there were no criminals, suddenly you don't need this, this whole big infrastructure that is like the law enforcement and law infrastructure. So you don't need, all the police, most of the courts, you don't need the lawyers, you don't need majority of the stuff. Like, a large chunk of the population, whatever jobs, what keeps them occupied, the kind of jobs they do. You just take that straight out of your employment ecosystem, you take that straight out of your economy, and suddenly, you don't need that anymore. You don't even need so many lawmakers. You don't need a lot of politicians. You just don't need any of them. Like sometimes, like in work, I see like some of the managers who worked with me. They would say, "Oh, this problem, that problem. Like we have to deal with all these problems, and why do we have to?" It's like I used to tell them, you're a manager. It's your job to solve those problems. Think of it this way: if all the programmers did their work, if they didn't have any problems, if there were no problems to deal with, all the programmers would do their work, and then where would you go? You won't be necessary. You won't be in this job. Because there are problems, that's why they need managers. That's why you have this job. So think of it this way: that think that yes, let the problems come. Let there be more problems so that my job is secure. And each time those problems come, I learn more about my job, my skills improve. And it reinforces the belief that I am necessary, I am needed, the managers are needed. So it keeps me in this job and keeps me getting better and better as a manager. That's evolution. So you keep extrapolating it, keep applying this example in as many scenarios as you can. And you would realize that every time you take away the problems, suddenly you cause, instead of making it beneficial to the ecosystem, you actually push that ecosystem towards ending. You take the problems away from managers' job, the managers lose their job. You take the crime away from the society, all these big chunk of people lose their jobs. The economy is shrunk. You take animals from killing each other, and suddenly the whole ecosystem collapses. So all of these suffering that people call these natural disasters and wars and famines and whatnot, even the crime, it is serving a very useful role. All the sickness, it's keeping the population in balance to a certain extent. It's helping us evolve. It's helping us improve our skills. Can you imagine that today we are so proud of all the technological advancements humans have made? But it is a fact, if you don't know, it is a fact that majority of the research that has been done, the inventions that have been done, what we know of today, has been because of humans' need or desire to win wars or to survive against attacks or survive against those threats. So that's where all the inventions have come from. So all of these things are necessary. You take any of those things out, you cause an ending. And now recently, if you might have noticed that the wars are reducing. Earlier there used to be wars all the time, so population was in check. The human population was in check, and so animals could thrive, the forests could thrive, and so the earth looked quite different, because there were so many small countries all over Europe, Asia, everywhere, and there were so many tribes all over places, and they were just fighting with each other, there were wars, and so human population didn't exceed that much over a period of time. But as we go on and on throughout our history, in recent times the wars have been reducing, the amount of wars have been reducing. Yes, there were World War I, World War II, there have been recent wars where America has been involved in, but if you look at the trend, the wars have been reducing. And the crime has been reducing as well. You couldn't walk out into the forest, let's say 200 years ago, because you would be either killed by some predator or some people passing by. You'd be worried and scared of them, if you see some strangers. So But now, most of the places in the world, like you could walk alone at night, in the middle of the night, anywhere, and you feel safe. You don't feel so. Crime has been reducing. So all these threats that humans have faced have been reducing, and not because of any other reason, but because humans have been evolving. They have been getting stronger. They have been getting smarter. They have been taking action to create a society that is safer for them. That's the reason it's happening. So now humans have become so successful that they are reducing all the threats, most of the threats that were happening. Wars are reducing, crime is reducing. They are winning over lots of these diseases and illnesses. So humans are living longer, they are dying less. But what's the end result? The population is exploding. Population is exploding. And obviously, there is that threat now that it looms, that what if, the earth can't sustain that many humans anymore? What would happen? So because of that threat, now humans have started space exploration. They're looking for resources in space. There are companies like planning to send people to Mars so that we could learn how to colonize that planet. So we humans have more resources, more space. There are plans afoot to start looking at feasibility of mining the asteroid belt. So obviously that is the threat because of which humans are doing that. So if humans can solve that problem within time, then that's great, because then they overcome a threat, so they can expand on other planets. So it's not exploding population is not a problem. But let's assume if the colonization mission to Mars fails, or if the mission to mine the asteroid belts fails, or it is not ready in time till the human race keeps increasing in population, reaches a tipping point, what happens then? Two things. One, obviously, as the human population increases, the resources become more and more scarce, land becomes less and less, right? So what happens then? Obviously, automatically, naturally, humans would want a war, go to war. They would start fighting with each other because they want whatever less number of resources they have. It's but natural that they would just attack each other, whoever has those resources, and try to grab those resources, whatever land. They would, there would be wars because of land, and then that would bring the human population down so that they can survive. Because if they don't go to war at that point to grab those resources, yeah, war is bad, this, that, yeah, people say that. But if under those circumstances, if humans don't go to war, the whole human race would die. It's that simple. Or let us assume that humans are living in peace, so they decide they don't want to go to war. So there are all these governments that decide that, we don't want to go to war. But then the population keeps increasing unchecked. What it means is that all the animals have to die one by one, right? And the forests have to die gradually, right? So the whole ecosystem changes. Natural ecosystem changes. So we are talking about, now we are talking about global warming. Now global warming is because all of the carbon dioxide, the balance, the percentage of carbon dioxide in the environment is increasing. So which is a greenhouse gas. So obviously, so more and more heat is being stored within Earth, within the Earth's environment. So it's not escaping. So Earth is becoming, over a period of time, warmer and warmer. So that's a natural ecosystem that's changing. And similarly, even if a lot of people say, oh, global warming is a myth, so forget about that. So let's assume that. So even if, let's say, it's not happening, that's what people say. So the only thing that is maintaining the balance between level of oxygen and carbon dioxide is the plants. The plants convert the carbon dioxide into oxygen. And humans take oxygen, they breathe oxygen and convert it to carbon dioxide. So if there are so many humans, which means they need more space, so they're killing off all the plants. So that means there are more humans producing carbon dioxide and consuming oxygen, but there are less plants consuming carbon dioxide and creating oxygen. So automatically, whether you believe in, there is no way you could deny that carbon dioxide levels are going to increase if human population is increasing. It's bound to happen. So if that happens, what are you doing? Forests are the ones that give you oxygen that you breathe. So let's assume a scenario that suddenly there are so many humans, there are no wars, nothing to kill them. They've just occupied the whole planet, killed off all the forests because they don't have enough place to live, but they need those food from those plants. So suddenly all the plants are dead. There aren't enough plants to sustain enough oxygen for humans to breathe in. They're gonna die. But nature has checks and balances. So the first check and balance is the human nature itself. The yin and yang. So long before that happens, before the resources run out, humans would start creating wars with each other. They're gonna start fighting. So that would reduce the population. So again, things would be balanced out. That's one. The other option is that before that, somehow humans would be able to colonize some other planets, find resources, ways to get resources from different other outside of the Earth. So then again, they would be able to sustain themselves and survive. And the third option is that because of their expansion, the environment would change so much that the environment itself would want to correct itself. And how? If the carbon dioxide levels are too much, the planet becomes warmer. That causes that causes much more disasters, far more disasters than anything humans have seen before. So nature would create more natural disasters. And it's not the nature doing that. It's because of the impact humans have on the environment, which in turn, for example, if the planet is hot, the ice caps would melt, sea levels would rise, there would be a number of species that would die. And then each species within that ecological system plays a role. So let's say if the bees die, all of the bees die theoretically, then the plants have no way to pollinate each other. So a lot of plants would die straight away. So each species has certain role to play within that system. So there are certain species that may go extinct and then they don't impact the environment that much. But then unchecked expansion of humans would cause so many species to go extinct, and the forest to reduce so much, and carbon dioxide levels to increase so much that eventually it is going to create a big impact. So nature would automatically want to correct itself, and there would be more natural disasters. And that's the reason, if you look at the history, the natural disasters have been on the increase in recent years. There is a marked increase in the frequency and intensity of some of the natural disasters. So that's just the nature correcting itself. That is basically the yin and yang imbalance. So first and foremost, this video was to discuss why is it that these things are necessary. So if you say, if God exists, why so much suffering? Why poverty? Why sickness? Why natural disasters? Why all this crime? Whatever it is. You have to understand that because God exists, or maybe God exists, or for sake of betterment of human race, for survival of human race, for survival of this planet, those things are necessary. You take those things out, you end the planet, you end the human race, you end all the animals, you end everything. So whatever you consider good, whatever you consider desirable, cannot exist without the other extreme, which you consider bad, which you consider undesirable. So if you have to survive, if you accept whatever is good, if you desire whatever is good, you have to also accept, be at peace with whatever is undesirable, whatever is bad. And just consider that as part of nature. It's part of the balance that ensures survival, your own survival. So accept it, that this is necessary. You cannot exist without both the things to exist. So just accept it, let it be, and just figure out what actions you can do, what thoughts you can have, that you can accept this But still, make sure you stay on this side, which is desirable for you, which you feel is good, and not fall onto this side. That's all your job is. Accept this, accept all the negative, accept wholeheartedly that this is necessary. There's nothing wrong with it. This is important for our survival, for our evolution. So just don't try to, kill it. Don't try to fight against it. Just let it be. It's there. So just figure out, accept this section and figure out what you need to think, what you need to do to stay on the positive side of this scale. That's all there is. So summary is, it's all necessary, it's all good. Doesn't matter whether you like something or don't like something. There is no reason to get worked up about the fact that certain things exist which you find undesirable. They are necessary. Accept them. And this is one of the things you must explain to yourself. And these are things you could explain to yourself when you realize that you're feeling negative emotions and because of the existence of those things. Just accept them. And what I do is I accept these things, know that they are necessary for our survival, for evolution. And I know if you're being bombarded with all these negative things, so it's very hard for us to say positive under those scenarios, obviously. So all I do is just I've stopped reading the news. That's it. It's that simple. You may find a different strategy. Every person has a different strategy. Every person has different way of looking at things. So you may find another strategy. But whatever strategy you follow, it's up to you. But at the end of the day, this coin has to have both these sides for that coin to exist. So having said that, I hope this video helps, and I'll see you soon, because after a long gap I've decided that I'm going to post a few more videos soon, and one of the videos I'm really excited to do, which is coming up soon, is the science behind law of attraction. A lot of people think it's some hocus pocus, but I would like to explain that in great detail in one of the few videos that coming up soon. So until then, enjoy yourself, be happy, stay positive, and just go live your life the way you want. Namaste.